Well, well, well. What is going on, Broncos country, based on some feedback that I got that I asked for in Discord and along some really close group of friends. They had all wanted me to do a little bit more live streams, right? And I typically I really do enjoy doing live streams, but a lot of the times it's just one of those where I don't want to, find myself going at the same time as somebody else or taking anything away from others. And it's actually a lot more difficult than you think to run a show, right? All by yourself. But I do very much enjoy it, especially when we have some great participation from y'all in the chat. So we'll wait for a few more of you guys to kind of get in. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I got a new mic setup, new camera setup that I'm pretty pumped about. And so we are hopefully it's sounding a little bit clearer. You can even notice some sort of a difference, but let me know below if that is the case. But we gotta, I put some couple of questions out there on Twitter. I put a poll, said that we're gonna have this Friday mailbag, and we got a couple of great responses. So we're gonna go ahead and get cooking with the first question that we got from Justin. And I'm glad this is actually perfect timing. I just got done watching the Sean Payton post practice interview. I always like to watch these. He asks, when does Greenlaw come back? Injury seems much more serious, and I think you're absolutely correct. I was watching the post-practice presser just to see if there was any kind of a information that we can get. Sean didn't really talk about it like he typically doesn't, but what did come out was the injury report, the official injury report, which is a little bit concerning. Concerning in a sense of Evan Ingram didn't practice the entire week with a back injury, and he's out. So it's a pretty serious back injury when it's not necessarily getting better at all. Maybe we'll find out a little bit more about what kind of injury it is. Maybe we won't. But very unfortunate news there with Evan Ingram being out for this game. I didn't think that would. The good news is that Nate Atkins does return for this game, so happy to see him. Sean Payton talked about his versatility, something that when they were watching college film, he said they watched 11 games before they finally saw him catching the ball, and they were pleasantly surprised by how good he was and how good of an athlete he was. They really do utilize Nate Atkins to do a lot, so I think he's going to help in several different ways for this offense. Excited to see what he can do for us, but also how limited he's going to be. Right, you're not just going to throw him into the fire right away coming off a high ankle, but we'll see. And then everybody else is good aside from Dre Greenlaw, which we obviously talked about. Here's my biggest concern with Dre Greenlaw is last week, if you watch the injury report and you kind of listen to all the reports from Mike Kliss and a lot of these guys, he talked about, Mike Kliss said he felt like the plan for Dre Greenlaw the whole time was to ramp up this week, still not play in this game, and then ultimately be ready to go versus the Bengals next week, which would make sense given the reason they didn't put him on IR to start the season, which I feel like they should have regardless. I think with an injury like this that obviously kept, it's been a pest and it's kept getting re-aggravated and it's been very frustrating. It's one of those where, yeah, I get it, man. Like, keep him out for a couple extra games, because the important thing with Dre is that when he comes back, he's good for the rest of the season, or at least for a lot of the rest of the games. But last week, anyways, I kind of went off on a tangent. Last week, he was a DNP on Wednesday, a DNP on Thursday, and he logged a limited practice on Friday, which was nice to see, which kind of went in line with, we talked about him maybe ramping up a little bit more this week. Well, he was a DNP on Wednesday, which didn't concern me because that's kind of the padded practice, right? But then Thursday, he was a DNP, and he didn't practice again today on Friday. So listen, this is obviously just a theory. I don't know, and I don't got any additional info. It's not out there, but my guess is that he suffered another setback last Friday. And it kind of would go hand in hand with how Sean Payton talked about the injury after Friday's practice. He talked about, he used some word that I had to Google, but basically it's a very murky circumstances around the injury. We don't really know what it's about, and he's kind of on our timeline now. Like, it's very random. He just kind of made it seem like we don't really have a good hold of this thing. It's just one of those things that's kind of mysterious in a way, which soft tissue injuries can be. So that's my theory on that. I think that he suffered some sort of a setback. I think the Broncos should have put him on IR, saved the roster spot for somebody else. But I don't believe that he's going to be available for the probably next 2 weeks, in my opinion. That's just a guess. So don't hold me to that. But hope I'm wrong. But it seems like we're going to have to wait a lot longer for Dre Greenlaw. And listen, it's disappointing. It really stinks. Because, yes, you knew about the injury concerns with Dre Greenlaw, right? I mean, it's unfortunate. But also, it was one of those things where, like, listen, he tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl. That was really his only major injury up to that point. Missed a lot of the following season, which you would expect. Came back and had a wrist issue. Two injuries that are they're not related in any way. And then he has a bad quad injury this year. So it's a little bit of, injury prone. I get it. But I think most of it is just really bad luck. It's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate for him. Unfortunate for Evan Ingram. But we'll keep it rolling because it's ultimately one of those things. You judge the injuries and you judge if a free agent signing or a player was worth it based on the entire year sample. But it's certainly not getting off on the right foot. But yeah, my guess, man, is I think it is. I didn't think it was a little bit more serious. I was waiting for today's injury report to make that decision, but now I feel like there was some sort of a setback, and that's really frustrating. But I felt like if it was more serious initially than the Broncos coaching staff had put forward, they would have just put him on IR. I don't think they just took up a roster spot for no reason. So it just is what it is. There's not really anybody that you can blame. It's just kind of the nature of the beast, man. So that kind of stinks, but is what it is. And then my guy Kodiak, man. Shout out to Kodiak. Go check out his channel. Make sure you guys like and subscribe there. But what's great about Kodiak's channel and this question today is he actually made a really good video, which you should go, he dropped it today, kind of talking about how difficult the Chargers are going to be. He did a kind of a scout film review on the Chargers, and I thought it was really insightful and intuitive. And he talked about, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does Hampton and Najee scare you? Hampton has had a few nice runs, but seems to be doing as much as possible to not get the trust of the Chargers coaching staff. Yeah, I mean, I would say the Chargers run game, regardless of if it's J.K. Dobbins last year, Gus Edwards, they were a scary tandem last year, I mean. And I think that they're better off now with Najee and Omarion Hampton in a way. And it's been a slow start for them. I think a lot of it is just because they felt like the opponents that they're going up against, they have a big advantage through the air and passing the ball, especially with Keenan Allen coming back and kind of the resurgence of Quentin Johnson. It seems like that's kind of been the case with them. They also probably realize and anticipate that a lot of teams are going to play them a certain style, stop the run, be as physical as you can with the run. And the Chargers have kind of tried to take advantage of that. So does it scare me? I mean, of course it does. Their entire run game scares me because I feel like they have a formidable offensive line. And I feel like they can definitely wear you down as the game goes on. So we have to be very stout up front because the second that those running backs can get to the second level, we're not going to be put in the best position with Singleton and Sternad there. But however, I'll say this, okay? For as many flaws as Alex Singleton and Justice Sternad both have as your starting linebackers, they're both very good at defending the run for the most part. Right, they're pretty good, linebackers when it comes to defending the run. Like I said, I know the long run last week with Jonathan Taylor was really just Alex Singleton not staying committed to where he was going, kind of over pursuing and getting shaken out of his boots a little bit. But for the most part, they're pretty decent when it comes to them stopping the run. So it kind of is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I'm concerned about the entire Chargers offense in general. Again, I feel like they're a team that I think really matches up well with us. They're physical offensive line that can kind of counteract our physical defensive line. And there's somebody that, not necessarily has an elite tight end per se, but they got a quarterback that's mobile that can win with his feet. And they will definitely find ways to utilize the running backs out of the backfield. It's just something that they kind of do. Last year basically what they did is they featured Kamani Vidal, which was a third string pass catching scat back in the first game. He had a long touchdown against us. And then in the second game, they featured Stone Smart, who's like a very athletic, just receiving tight end, to try to take advantage of us that way. He had 3 catches, I believe, for 30 or 40 yards when I had last looked. But again, finding the matchups. That was certainly a matchup, somebody that I felt like, they found a weakness there. So that they'll be able to continue to exploit those. And it's just a matter about how we adjust. I mean, I think we have a good idea of how they're going to attack us. It's just a matter of how committed we are, how effective we are with our defense. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the Chargers are loaded, man. They fly around. They give you some crazy, different, weird looks. So we're going to have to kind of give them a dose of their own medicine, right? As you guys saw, I mean, their defensive coordinator and the way that they do it is they're similar to us defensively, whereas they're fine giving up yards and they're fine allowing for you to get, drives that kind of take a lot of time off the clock. But once you get into the red zone, they're very, very stout. So we got to make sure that we are scoring touchdowns in the red zone. We take advantage of the explosives whenever we do. All those things start with having an effective run game. You're able to run the ball like we did in the first half of that second matchup last year. Then we're going to be able to open up a lot of things down the field and the play action game and all that kind of stuff. But looking at the games last year, I'm just pulling them up here now. In the second game, the Chargers had 28 carries for 117 yards, 4.2 average. The Broncos had 21 carries, 110 yards, and a 5.2 average. So we actually ran the ball still more effectively than they ran against us. And it was pretty sad because they were the ones that ran it more when it should have been the opposite. We should have kept running. Bo had a good game. He was 29 of 40, 263 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. I would say he played better than Justin Herbert did. He had 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception in that game. And then if you look at the first matchup that we had against them here at home, Herbert had a really efficient game, but again, they 38 carries, 128 yards, 3.4 average, and we out rushed them again, at least from an average standpoint, by quite a bit. We averaged 6.1 yards per carry, but the problem is that Bo Nix was our leading rusher, 6 carries, 61 yards. And if it wasn't for him, we only had 12 rushing attempts from our running backs. Actually, 11 from our running backs because we had one from Troy Franklin. That's abysmal. That's really, really bad. So we can't be doing that. But what I noticed is that even in the days where the Chargers are not having the most efficient running game, they are still going to run it a lot. And they are still going to feature that. And maybe it's been different so far this year, but up to this point, that's kind of how they've been. And I don't think somebody, just because they had 2 games this season where they had a little bit of a different philosophy, I don't think that causes them to veer off of what they usually do and how they usually play opponents. But, let's see really quickly with this last game against the Raiders. They passed the ball 27 times and they ran the ball 26 times. So even in games where it feels like, oh my gosh, they're throwing the ball a lot more, they're still about 50-50 average. And then in Brazil against the Chiefs in week 1, they threw the ball 34 times and they ran the ball 25. So that was a little bit of an anomaly there. But still, like I said, I don't think that this is a team that's going to all of a sudden change their identity. They're still going to want to run the ball. And frankly, if you want to, your best chances of having success against the Broncos offense is by running the football, even if it's for not for a whole lot of chunk plays or anything like that. Because eventually, they'll be able to get gouged and we'll be aggressive and they'll catch us in like a blitz or something and it can break off for an explosive. So that's kind of the best way I would say for teams to attack us and the way that I expect for them to attack us for sure. So, it's going to take pressuring Justin Herbert, man. He hasn't been pressured a whole bunch this year. He was sacked twice last week. And he was sacked twice in week 1. Oh, no, 3 times in week 1. So, he has the sacks, but for the most part, he gets the ball out of his hands. And they've really been capitalizing. What's been surprising with the Chargers is their ability to hit on those explosives. Like they'll have 1 or 2 a game, but they're huge. They're big time. That's going to be to Quentin Johnson. So, I think for me, man, I'm ready to see this might sound a little bit counterintuitive because it's not going to be a lineup that's necessarily ideal for the run game, but I'm ready to see a lot more dime. I'm ready to see those those packages where we have one true linebacker, maybe Alex Singleton only on the field, and we bring in like a PJ Lock on the back end and have Talanoa Hufanga play a little bit more in the box. You can use Brandon Jones to play a little bit more in the box and kind of switch it up that way to really be able to counteract what they want to do in their pass game, in the play action, and see how that holds up against the run game. If you feel like you're getting gashed with that, you can make your adjustments. But I'd like to see him give that look because I feel like that's going to be a nice matchup on the back end. And I do think that they'll be able to hold up enough against the run game with those guys, especially with Talanoa Hufanga and his physicality in the box and all that kind of good stuff too. So we'll see. But on a scale of 1 to 10, to get back to your question, I would say I'm like probably a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10 worried about them. I think it really boils down to more so like the threat of what it is that they can do, which obviously is still them, is still those two runners. But yeah, it's a scary run game. You know, they'll bring in 7 offensive linemen and they'll jam it down your throat with a 300-pound fullback ahead and you know, leave you no mercy if you felt like you needed to. So it is what it is. But it's going to be a great test. It's going to be a great test this early in the season. And then Pete reached out to me and said, are you at all concerned about the trajectory of Bo Nix after his up and down start to the season? Not at all, really. I'm not. I've been a little bit surprised, I guess, by some of the decisions that he's made or the way he looked at times, especially in week 1, kind of a little bit more reckless nature. But I can't say I didn't expect it. I was just surprised by, I guess, how he went about doing it. Because here's my thing, like, eventually a quarterback's going to need to make that transition, you know, to being a more complete, you know, franchise quarterback like Bo Nix was. Like, I think he did so many wonderful things last year, but there was also still a lot of areas that he had to improve, right? The explosive plays, the pocket manipulation, the stepping up, keeping their eyes downfield and not necessarily just running after your first read. And those are things that I can see that there's a concerted effort by him to do. So naturally, there's going to be a lot of hiccups. But again, man, I mean, his athleticism, his competitiveness, all the things that you hear from his teammates and just know about the kind of worker that he is and how much this means to him. I think it's just a matter of time before he's a bona fide franchise quarterback. It's just, you know, you're going to have those bumps in the road for sure. And then, again, factor in, I mean, people call it a sophomore slump for a reason, not just because all of a sudden, you know, these guys go into their second year and they forget how to play. It's nothing to do with that. A lot of it is because they're making transitions in their game. And in addition, you've got defenses that now have a lot more film on you. So they're going to be throwing different looks at you. And it's going to be a learning process again for you to be able to counteract those moves. So I think that's a lot about what's going on, but not concerned at all about the trajectory of Bo Nix, man. I'm so fired up that he's our quarterback. It's been a rougher start, you know. And if you look at the PFF stuff and all that about him, you'd be like, oh my gosh, it's miserable. But I think you see a lot of good. And the huge leap from week 1 to week 2 is very, 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 what's the opposite of concerning? It's very good. That was very nice to see. I know that the word is slipping on the tip of my tongue, but encouraging. It was very encouraging to see that because that's exactly what you wanted to see. So I thought he played really well against Indy, -1 throw, which it is what it is. All right, and then Tyler coming through asking, is this a must win? Is this game a must win? That's such a tough question to answer because you can always make the argument that like it's a must win versus it not being a must win. But I definitely don't think it's a must win at all because I always looked at the definition of a must win of like, you've got to win or your season's over. But this is an extremely important game. Extremely important game. Because listen, the Chargers win, they go 3-0. They go 3-0 in the division. They have a commanding lead. Now, albeit it's early, now you're playing catch up for a lot of the season. Right? So it puts you in a little bit of a hole. Whereas if you win the game and you're able to have the division lead with a tiebreaker against the Chargers, it puts you in a significantly better position. So yeah, it's an extremely important game, but I wouldn't call it a must win. I got Henry Moore coming through. Thanks for coming in, Henry. Broncos need to come out with some urgency. They do. They do, man. They really need to come out with some urgency. I feel like it's going to be important for them to respond. What's making me optimistic about this game is what they showed last year of they do have a really good ability to respond to tough losses, right? The way that they responded against, after the Chiefs game, right? And then going and beating the shit out of the Atlanta Falcons. They had a tough loss against the Bengals, right? And even though we know that it was the Chiefs' third string team the following week, they put a beat down on them. They came out with a lot of urgency and a lot of, will to win. And then, even the game, we played against, I'm trying to remember the schedule. We played the Chargers. We ended up losing to the Chargers on Thursday, and then we had the back-to-back. So I felt like we came out and had really good energy against the Bengals, and I felt like we played a really good game against them, good enough to be able to win. But like the response was good. The response was solid there, and so that was that was something that I always found encouraging, is the way that this team kind of bounced back. So I expect for them to hopefully come off to a fast start. He's saying, yes, it is. It's a must win. If they don't win this game, they'll be a mediocre team for the rest of the year. Respectfully, man, I think that's a little bit more of like an emotional take, right? I can understand why it would make you think that, but there's no reason to think that if we lose this game, now all of a sudden we're going to be mediocre the rest of the year. Because, let's say we were playing, I don't know, who do people consider the best team in the league this year? Maybe the Bills or the Eagles. If we lost, we wouldn't be saying, we're going to be mediocre the rest of the year. I think just because of the implications for the division, it makes it a little bit tough. But there's no reason why this team, like it did last year, can't string off 4, 5, 6 wins in a row in the middle of the season. But again, it's one of those where you don't want to put yourself in that position again, where you're digging yourself out of a hole, or you really need to go on a little bit of a roll to get back to it. Starting the year off 1-2 is not the end of the world. It's not like starting it out 1-5 like we were a few years ago, or 0-2, 1-3, and then we got the 2-3, and then 3-3, and then we get down. You kind of go back and forth. So you don't want to have a little bit more of that, but yeah, 1-2. If let's say you lose this game and then you play the Bengals Monday night and you get a win, and then you get a shocking upset win against the Eagles, and you're 3-2 after 5 games. There's so much context to a lot of this. So I wouldn't call it a must win, but I think it is extremely important, not just because of the division, but because it's one of those games where, man, you feel like the Chargers kind of have your number. Let's face it. They kind of do. With Jim Harbaugh, he was 2-0 against us last year. They were rough games. And so, yeah, you want to feel confident. Like you felt, for so many years, you always focused on the Chiefs and building your team to counteract the Chiefs. You built this really good defense so that you can stop the Chiefs, and it's worked in a way, right? Because even in the games we've lost to the Chiefs, we've looked really good defensively, and they haven't looked like themselves. But now you got the Chargers, and they're legit, man. Let me tell you that. I'm not going to sit there and shit on the opponent, even though I obviously don't like the Chargers. They are very good. They are very good. Eli, my guy, appreciate you, man. Salute to the grind. You know what's funny, man? This is definitely not a grind for me. This is easy stuff. This is the easiest thing for me. And it's cool, but it's also kind of not, right? Because, obviously it's nice to have a hobby and a passion and something that you can just chat about. But, it's kind of frustrating because I can click record, talk about the Broncos unplanned for 2 hours if I wanted to. But there's nothing else in the world that I could do that. I was in sales for a long time, practiced my sales presentation a million times before I got it to where I wanted for it to be. This is just one of those where it just comes naturally. And I wish finding the cure to cancer, or being a lawyer, or engineering, or something that could get me really, really far in life, being a doctor. I wish those kinds of things could come easy to me in my life. But unfortunately they don't. Just sports and sports debating. So, but I appreciate you, man. Thanks for all the love. Eli Betts is one of the GOATs. One of my favorite people. Even though he's a Jets fan, he's always, welcome in Broncos country. He's always kind of a part of what it is that we do. So we know he's low key a big Bronco fan, but he's also a Jets fan too. So hopefully them Jets, man. I think those Jets are looking. I know it's disappointing, but I feel like I see a lot of similarities to when, with Aaron Glenn getting there as when Sean Payton first took over. It's probably not going to be the prettiest year, but they're going to quickly know the guys that fit into what they want to accomplish and the guys that don't. And so I think they'll clean house, and that culture is going to be on the right trajectory, and hopefully they'll be legit in a few years. But appreciate that. Thanks for coming in with the super chat, man. That was dope. Yeah, man. I mean, I'd love to know. I don't want this to be super long of a session. We were going 25 minutes. I said I'd probably keep it down to a half an hour. But if you guys have any questions, anything you're curious, you want in a debate, personal questions, sports related, Broncos, other sports, shoot them at me. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of rant for the next probably 5-6 minutes about random stuff that I feel like talking about, and then we'll wrap it up. But yeah, overall, man, I think that this is one of those games where, if the Broncos win, there's going to be a lot of, I wouldn't say false hope, but so many people are going to be like putting an unnecessary kind of like, oh my gosh, this team should be 3-0 and we're going to be the best, and we're winning the West, and like they're going to be jumping to a lot of positive conclusions, which is always better because that means you got you won the game. But I think this still it's still a grind. It's still important to know that this is such a long season. So if we win this game, which I hope we will, and I have a feeling that we will, it's going to be wonderful. But it doesn't mean anything is set in stone. And if we lose this game, it's the same kind of thing. We just got to always remember to keep these things in perspective, and that the team that starts off in the beginning is nothing like the team later on in the year. But things I want to see cleaned up the most, and I'm almost sick of talking about it because we talked about it so much last year, and it's like PTSD still that I feel. We need to, if we're in a position in this game where we can really put the Chargers out of their misery in a way, right? Like make it a 2-score game at an important time in the fourth quarter. We need to be able to do that. We let opponents hang around way too much. It's happened in both games. Drives me crazy. Now, I would love to see a game where we just thoroughly control the clock. We can win the time of possession battle 35, 36, 37 minutes. That would be great. This is a perfect game to do that. How do you feel about the free trades with Ingram and Greenlaw? You think the Broncos got their free agent? I'm guessing you're saying free agent signings. So we didn't trade for them. You think the Broncos got their money's worth? Just like I kind of talked about a little bit in the beginning when we addressed the Dre Greenlaw injury thing. It's impossible to say right now if the Broncos got their money's worth or not. What I will say is this. If Dre Greenlaw ends up not playing much at all, when he does, he's not effective. Yes, you're going to say, okay, we didn't get our money's worth, but both contracts were extremely team-friendly. We can get out of both contracts after this season. So it's not like we're locked down with a lot of these guys. But yeah, I mean, obviously you want to be able to get as much out of them as you can. And I do think we will. I think Ingram's going to, I think he's only missing one game. I think he'll be back for next week's game. And I think Dre Greenlaw eventually will. And if Dre Greenlaw comes in and he plays, let's say he plays 8 games, the final 8 games of the season, and he plays really well, and then we go into the playoffs and he plays well in the playoffs, then of course it's worth it. So it's just too early to tell. But I still feel really optimistic about it from an Evan Ingram standpoint. I think he's going to get it going. But yeah, it's been frustrating with Dre, man. And it sucks because it's not his fault, and everything that you hear about him, that you read about, this guy is a fiery dude. He loves football more than anything. I'm sure it's pissing him off more than anybody else, but just want him to get right. And I that's why I felt like we should have IR'd him, man. We should have put him on IR. We could have kept an additional roster spot for somebody that could have helped contribute, early. And it gave him ample time to get right. I was willing to sacrifice the first 4 games if that meant him coming off strong. And I just really hope that there wasn't a setback like I think there was with the injury last week. So we will see, man. Appreciate it, guys. You guys have all been awesome. This has been dope. Eli, Henry, all you guys in the chats that gave me super chats on Twitter. You guys have been wonderful, man. Go enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your Friday night. Make sure you spend it with those people that you love the most. Be kind to people. Be kind to yourselves. And we'll see you on the flip side, man. Go Broncos. Peace.